Greetings to all of you, and first let me wish you congratulations and success for the International Forum on Early Childhood Development. It's a very exciting event. I wanted to share with you a few thoughts about early childhood development and behavior change. And so the first thing I'd like to share with you is that I think all of us at some level know that many of our behaviors are not rational. So what do I mean by that? Many of us would like to exercise more, to lose weight, to spend less time on our mobile phones and more time with our friends and family. There are lots of different types of behaviors that we would like to do, but even though we know that they're good for us, we don't always do that. I'm sure you can all think of examples from your own life. And of course, we all know doctors who smoke cigarettes. It's not because they don't have information about the dangers of smoking. It's that all of us at some level are a little bit irrational. The thing is, what we find is that when it comes to early childhood development, we sometimes forget this important fact. We're so busy trying to improve the behaviors of parents and caregivers and service providers. We're so busy trying to help them be better at feeding their kids, at breastfeeding their kids, at providing their kids with cognitive stimulation, at reducing negative discipline or corporal punishment. We're trying to get them to be more physically active. We want fathers to be more involved. There are so many behaviors that we're trying to support. It turns out that we find in a lot of our programs, we spend a lot of time telling people what they should be doing, so giving them information, when in reality, often the gap, the barrier that they're facing is not that they don't have the information, it's something else. So what behavioral science tells us is that there are a few things that are really important to do. The first thing is, you have to understand what is the real barrier or real barriers, plural, that are preventing people from adopting the behavior that you want. And often it turns out that if you do some homework and some research, the barriers which are most important are not the ones that we may think from the outside, and often it has nothing to do with the lack of information. The second thing that behavioral science tells us is that once you think you know what the biggest barriers are, you can come up with some messages or some activities to try and help people overcome those barriers. But it's really important to test them first. What does that mean, test them first? So what we usually think is that it means you need to test your messages or activities with the target group. You have to test more than one option. If you just give people one option, test one thing, you may not get the best, most effective option. So test 2 or 3 versions, figure out which is most effective. And then the third thing is, when you want to measure your success, you have to find some ways to actually measure the behavior you want to change. Just measuring changes in people's attitudes or people's knowledge isn't always an effective way of knowing whether their behaviors are actually going to change. The good news is that we already know that in Brazil, there are a number of different organizations, NGOs, government departments that are getting serious about applying behavioral science to early childhood development. They're taking the time to really understand what are those barriers, what prevents fathers from taking paternity leave, what is it that limits a mom's abilities to do all the things that they would love to do for their babies. The second thing is they're planning to test some different versions of their activities and interventions, which is really exciting. And they're thinking about measuring behaviors. So I think this is a very exciting moment, and I would urge all of you to think about what are you doing in your programming? What types of behaviors are you trying to change? And do you have the data, the evidence base that you need to ensure you're being as effective as possible? One last thought. I know that the theme of this conference is equality. And I think this is really important. We know that different families, different communities have different needs, and they have different barriers. If we really want to support the most marginalized, the most vulnerable groups of parents and caregivers in Brazil to improve their behaviors for early childhood development, we owe it to them. We must take the time to know what are the barriers that are most important to them and what will be the messages and activities that will be effective for them, because the ones that work for certain groups may not work for others. I think it's a very exciting opportunity, and I wish you all the best. And I look forward to hearing about how many of you will be moving forward to apply behavioral science, evidence-based approaches to your work for improving behaviors in early childhood development. Muito obrigado. Ciao.